for Stone Lantern Games. We developed Evergate. This is our first game ever made, and we're excited that the speedrunning community has found it. It's a precision puzzle platformer based in the afterlife, and you'll get to see our character Key in a little bit arrive in the afterlife.
Yeah, so this game came out in the middle of August for the full release, but it's been in beta for quite a bit of time, and the speedrunning community has really latched onto it. The physics of the game and just the kind of precision, puzzly nature of it, I know really appealed to me and several of the other runners in the community. So we're going to get a pretty long tutorial section here, about 3 whole minutes, and then we'll be diving into the regular game. But you'll see here we got some pretty generic platformer movement where you're just moving your character around, and we'll be introducing the Soul Flame coming up here shortly, which is the main thing that separates Evergate from other puzzle platformers.
Yeah, finding the Soul Flame was the big challenge of developing Evergate. We made something like 12 different prototypes over a couple of years before we found the Soul Flame. And once we did, we liked it so much that we scrapped everything and rebuilt the game around it.
Yeah, so here we have the Soul Flame. So this mechanic allows us to interact with various crystals throughout the game's world here. So this tutorial section is just kind of showing you how to use the Soul Flame. You're seeing Link here shooting these beams of light off into the source. So anytime you see this little white section right here, that is source, and you can connect to that with your Soul Flame. Anything that is in between Key and the source gets broken. So you're going to see these tutorial crystals right here. Link is going to be using his mouse to direct where that Soul Flame is going and break these crystals by connecting them with the source. So that was the tutorial section. We are getting introduced into the game's library section right here. This is kind of the game hub where we are navigating to the various books that we're going to be reliving some memories with Key.
Link Force has one of our options, speedrunning options on, and it kind of ramps up some of the transition, so the music isn't really aligning with the visuals, but that's on purpose because we want to get you to the game as fast as possible. In fact, we've been working with the speedrunning community for the last year and a half. They've been our alpha testers, they were our beta testers. We took a lot of input from them on trying to figure out how to design Evergate.
Yeah, so we are getting right into the Secret Garden book of this game. This game is kind of split into various levels within the books. So we're going to be having our 10 different books with 7 levels each, except for the last one. That one's a little bit special. And you're seeing Link moving throughout these levels using these boost crystals. So this yellow crystal type is the first crystal that is introduced in the game. Basically, it just gives you a boost of speed in the direction that you are in relation to the crystal. So if you're directly up and down on the crystal, you're getting direction in the y-axis, and if you're directly to the side, you're getting movement in the x-axis. So a lot of the speed tech of this game revolves around your positioning relative to these crystals. The harsher of an angle you get, the more speed you get in that direction. Coming up, this is 1-4. This is probably the hardest level in the early section of the run. Link is going for a skip right here that basically skips about half of the level. Getting up to the upper section right here is pretty precise. You have to have some very, very tight angles to make it up there and skip the slower section of that level.
You notice when Link messes up, like right here, he can restart the level pretty quickly. We took a lot of inspiration from games like Super Meat Boy, trying to make sure that if you mess up or if you don't do something the way you want it, you're not really punished for it. We try to make the levels small enough where even resetting towards the end doesn't really punish you too much. There's no kind of state or RPG elements that will punish you either. It's just, can you get to the end? I don't know if we mentioned that, but the whole goal is to get to the end of each level by getting to the gate.
Yep, and you also saw another mechanic right there where you can slow down time. So I know Link is playing on a keyboard and mouse, so by holding down the right mouse button, you're able to make the shots a little bit more precise by slowing down there. You get a beam, and it kind of helps you in order to make those shots that are really hard a little bit easier at the cost of some time. I guess we should also mention that Link is doing the any percent no unlockables category. Any percent is you finish the game as quickly as possible. There are collectibles that you're seeing on these levels. So we have the flower petals that are like kind of translucent that you can see, as well as the game is actually counting the amount of crystals that you break on each level as well. So for any percent, you don't need to worry about that. You're just trying to get to the end of the level as quickly as possible. And he's also running the no unlockables category. So throughout these levels, you might see in the bottom right, like artifact unlocked. He is not allowed to use any of those. So it makes some strategies very unique to this run. So right here, we're getting these earth crystals. So these purple crystals they basically make a piece of land underneath you. And Link is using I don't know if it's a glitch or intended, but basically when you connect with an earth crystal, the game thinks you're on solid land, but you have a little bit of float time where you're in the air. This resets your jump. So you get a little bit more height if you jump immediately after hitting one of these earth crystals, and it's used to just get a little bit more height and make those vertical levels a little bit faster, as well as there was a skip in the first level of this world.
Yeah, you're talking about the jump reset on hitting the Earth Crystal, and that was something that the speedrunning community suggested, and we said, it doesn't break a normal usage of it, but does add this kind of speedrunning component to it, so we added it and kept it in the game.
Yeah, and we do get to see the crows here. These crows spawn every time you break a crystal, and they're really not that big of a deal in the speedrunning sense, but I know I got really, really frustrated with them on my casual playthrough.
Yeah, we went through a lot of iterations to try to figure out what the right difficulty level was with the crows, but and just recently we added an update that nerfs them a little bit because they can get a little bit frustrating.
Yeah, they do spawn wherever a key is, so sometimes there's really no way to avoid them, and it gets a little bit difficult. But since this is a puzzle game, you're really trying to kind of use your brain a little bit and figure out when a good time to break those crystals are. We see Link doing the skip here on the last level of Darkwoods very, very professionally. That was super clean. Getting up and around that right-hand side is not the intended path, but it is the fast path.
That's part of the joy about creating Evergate, was that we would make these levels that we would have an intended solution, but then we would make sure that we would have at least 3 other unintended solutions that you get through, and inevitably people will find even more. And we find that to be fun. It doesn't break the game if you can be creative and get around some of our puzzle elements.
Yeah, this run definitely uses a little bit more creativity with getting through the levels as quickly as possible. There are some ridiculous low percent strats for some of these where you can do a lot of these levels without even breaking a single crystal. But if you're interested in seeing that kind of thing, check out the speedrun.com leaderboards for low percent. So here we are introduced to the fire crystals. So these fire crystals burn source as well as activate. I'm not sure what the development term for these things is, but I like to think of them as like steam engines where they turn on and they move.
Hey, I like it. It works.
So yeah, these fire crystals will burn any connected source as well as activate these little moving platforms. So these are going to be featured all the way throughout this world. These dragons right here, when you burn them and the fire gets to their mouth, they start moving. This level is actually a little bit unique in the no unlockables category because you actually have to ride the dragon. In the unlockables category, you get an artifact that allows you to skip this section. So this is a little bit slower, but you have to do it for the no unlockables.
You can see here that the artifact is unlocked for the firecracker tail. That usually is something pretty coveted for speedruns, but like Sunny was saying, we're doing no unlockables, so can't use it. It normally would make you go faster.
Oh, that first jump that he made right there is really, really difficult without the assistance of the Lucky Frog. So it's really cool to see him be able to do that without using slowdown. So this is a very, very precise fire crystal shot to activate the bottom right little moving platform thing from an unintended fire crystal. That is one of the more aggravating shots in this run. It's really, really tight, and if you miss it, you lose seconds. So we are coming to the end of Lunar Festival here. This would normally be the point where you unlock the Dragon Tail and use it for the rest of the run, but again, this is no unlockables, so Link is going to be having to move at base speed throughout the rest of the game. So up until this point, the any percent route with unlockables doesn't really gain a whole bunch of time on the no unlockables category, but from here on out, he's having to use some strats that diverge from the original category.
And because this is a speed run, Link Force is going through all of the kind of lore and storyline, which is fine. But normally when you play the game, after every level, you kind of get to see a little bit more about Key's background, her memories of when she was living. And this will be the first life where the memories, actually, this is the first level where the memories come from a different life. So we were just in 3 different Chinese memories. This is when she lived in China in the 1700s. Now we're in Alaska in the 1800s.
Yeah, the game definitely presents the story in a very unique way. I really enjoy that there's not a lot of text to it. It's more a visual representation. And the game itself is just gorgeous. So here we get access to the swap crystals in the Blizzard. This is actually the shortest book in the game because of that. These crystals will swap Key's location with whatever source that you connect with. So there's a lot of unintended shots here that you're able to basically skip the entire level by swapping off a crystal at the start and going straight to the end.
We actually have a tool. Oh, nice bounce off that ice. We have a tool that you can that we built that can check to see where a crystal can be hit, and it helps us to figure out what can and cannot be done. But inevitably, no matter where we put, like this crystal here too, so we wanted that not to be hit, but people can just get it right there. And that happens a lot, and that's a lot of fun that people can find these different shots. Nice.
Yeah, one thing that I didn't know when I was learning this game is that the Soul Flame position is based off where Key is facing. So I was trying to do that shot facing right, and it does not work if you're facing right. So you just have to make sure to play with that hitbox to the maximum amount possible.
I didn't know that either. So these little creatures that are in the library are called Seekers, and they are souls who have entered into the afterlife and decided to stay in the afterlife instead of being reincarnated. So kind of like the meta story behind the game here is that Key has arrived in the afterlife and normally would enter into the Evergate to be reincarnated, take on a new life. But the Evergate is not letting her be reincarnated, and instead is offering her these memories to go into. And so we have to kind of travel through these different memories, figure out how to finally be reincarnated.
Yeah, so we are moving on to the Summer Hunt book. This book gives us access to these arrow crystals. These crystals can be used to break terrain, or you'll see in future levels to attack the mean caribou that we need to get out of the way so we can beat levels. And they can also be combined with other crystals to make their effects happen when they hit the arrow crystal. So we'll see a couple of those coming up in later levels where we're combining fire crystals with arrow crystals as well as swap crystals.
Oh no.
So these levels have introduced the caribou. You have to hit them with an arrow, and it's going to unlock the gate at the end, so you're able to finish the level. Some of them, like this one, only have one caribou to attack. Some of them have multiple, and it really just kind of makes you think about when you're using your crystal resources to attack these caribou. Because if you position yourself in a point where you don't have an arrow to use on the second one, you have to restart.
So one of the requirements when we were designing the different crystal types was making sure that the angle in which you hit the crystal and or the position of key when you do hit it, those were the important design criteria. So the arrow crystal is your angle relative to the arrow itself is where the arrow will fly. And you'll see that in other crystals as well.
Yeah, so here we get some fire crystals combining with arrow crystals to break the ice. And Link is putting on a clinic here. That is a very, very clean level right there. But yeah, and for those of you that are interested, you can also play this game on controller, and you control the Soul Flame using one of the thumbsticks. And I know personally, I find that method of control much more comfortable than trying to play Osu the entire time. But these keyboard runners definitely give me something to be envious about with their precision control of the Soul Flame. So this first jump right here, he's actually combining the swap crystal and the boost crystal to gain a little bit of extra height. And then mid-air, hitting an arrow crystal into the caribou and landing on the final platform. That's a pretty swaggy strat, and it looks really, really cool when it's pulled off like that.
That was impressive.
So we do have a little bit of speed tech in the library as well. So we're getting some more story here. But in the library, if you hold the respawn button, you respawn back to the entrance of it where the books are opening. So if Link Force holds down the respawn button here, he's going to immediately teleport to where he needs to be at the end of this cutscene. So moving on to Northern Lights, this is probably aesthetically my favorite book. We gain access to the void crystals here. They basically make a area that you can swim in. So if you kind of think like, Celeste, where you're moving around inside the feather, you have that kind of movement within these different void zones. And you can float in space, you can jump out of them, and you can break more crystals. You can put crystals, break them from the inside of them. They really allow for some pretty cool movement opportunities.
I forgot to mention on the last book, but the music that Mike was able to put into Evergate was really fun and special. He did a lot of research about these different areas and time periods. So we actually had some real Inuit throat singers come and do recordings for us, and as part of the soundtrack.
The music in this game is absolutely top notch. I know, I don't get tired of it, even after probably playing through this game 100 times. But it is fantastic. Schoolyard, shout outs, that's my favorite track.
I think Schoolyard, actually, Ariel played the trumpet in as well. He's one of our coders on the game and designers.
Yeah. So we have another little puzzle element here. So that white bar of light removes your void crystals that have been spawned. So you have to be a little bit accurate with where you're placing them and or not go through the white light. So on this one, you do kind of have to go through it to break these crystals at the bottom. With the artifact run, you can actually skip doing that.
Might not have been obvious, but when you combine multiple boost crystals, you get a bigger boost. And so same here, if you use those two rift crystals, you'd make a bigger rift. So there are different ways that you can combine the crystals.
Yep, and he's doing a little bit of an unintended strat here with that little micro ledge on the breakable terrain. So he's hopping up to a spot that you can land on, and then using that to get over what was normally intended to be broken by an arrow crystal.
Yeah, and to kind of riff off that a little bit, Evergate wasn't made with any kind of grid system, so all of these terrain and objects were kind of handcrafted, which can give it a little bit of an organic sense, but it also means that there are lots of little micro ledges that you can use if you can find them.
This adds to the fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is the Northern Lights chapter. That last level has some very, very difficult shots at the end there. You saw Link Forest doing using the slowdown mechanic to make those a little bit easier on himself. If you're doing that on controller, it's basically you just spam to the right and hope you connect.
So now we are entering into the third life. This is the third reincarnation of Key, and this is when she lives in England during World War II.
Yeah, so here we gain access to the, I don't even remember what they're called, the Fierce Flames, yeah. The Fierce Flame crystals are these little rocket crystals that will propel you around in the direction that your mouse is facing. So you get full directional movement with your mouse, and it actually makes some of the shots really, really difficult on keyboard because you might be aiming your Fierce Flame in one direction and then need to shoot a crystal that's behind you. So some pretty precise mouse usage is needed here. Like this one in particular is very, very hard.
So close.
Yeah, I'm not even sure what the intended way of making it through this level is. This strat is really, really cool. Moving to the little glass shard spot at the bottom.
Nicely done.
So this is one of the levels that's a little bit different on the Switch version. You see there's some spikes up there at the top. On the Switch version, you can just fly right over the level, but on PC, you have to go a long way around. Unfortunate.
That was a bug. We patched it in the Steam version. We don't mind fun game breaks, but when you can just kind of skip the level by going over it, it's got to be careful. You can't do that with all of them.
I'm pretty sure that strat is slower anyway. It just looks cool. But yeah, the Steam version, I think, it brought a whole new level to it. So also throughout the levels, you might be seeing these little flowers. That's part of one of the achievements. I think one of the things that inspired Link Force to do this run was there's an achievement for beating the game without using any of the unlockable artifacts. So what is a speed gun category is actually a category within the achievement system as well.
Wow, that's close.
Oh, this shot is so hard on KBM. So he's having to hit this off-screen Fierce Flame and then loop around to the left. It's really, really difficult.
That was one actually of the design kind of constraints that we had with the Soul Flame, is that while shooting a crystal off screen can be really fun and exciting when it's unintended, having it be required is kind of unfair. So some people asked us, like, why is the camera so zoomed out when you can kind of zoom in close on key? And that's part of the reason, is that the Soul Flame, being able to choose where you're going to aim and which crystals to fire, you should have the awareness of where those crystals are when you're taking the shots.
Yeah, there are a couple of strats that are basically controller only, because you do have to make completely 100% off-screen shots. And controller can shoot those blind, whereas on keyboard, if you can't aim there, you can't shoot there. So this is the Falling Sky level. So we're getting these pull crystals. So these little fan-looking things that whenever you connect them to source, they pull key toward it. And again, same with boost crystals. When you combine them and you have multiple of them, you can fly really far, really fast. And then depending on the angles, like right here, you can get quite a bit of horizontal movement, which is needed. I think this is the book that diverges the most from the unlockable category, because some of these pull crystal shots are very, very awkward when you don't have the additional boost of the frog.
So the element of the radio was something that we played around with, where you have to reach the radio for kind of a bombing raid to happen, and that will unlock the gate at the end. And now Link Force is on a level where the sky is falling, and he has to get all the way to the other side without getting hit.
This is actually one of my favorite levels, specifically in the 100% category. We have to collect all these crystals because it just gets so wild. There's like 3 different paths you can take through it, and they're all about the same amount of time. But having to collect all the crystals really makes for a nice, fun puzzle.
This level actually was one of our most difficult to design. I think we went through probably half a dozen different iterations of this before we found this one that we liked. But one of the mantras that Ariel and I have when we're designing these levels is there's always something. Because there's a lot of freedom to aim and to position yourself and use crystals in every way you want, sometimes it'll break the intention of the level, and so we have to be careful that it's designed very carefully.
Yeah, and this is one where the radio just kind of completely changes the texture of the level after you hit it. So with some careful pre-planning there and leaving some of those logs up, Link Force is able to leave himself a path to get to the exit on that. Let's see. This level is really, really hard without unlockables. Normally you use a move speed unlock to make it back to some safety before this the sky falls here, and without that move speed artifact, it's very, very tight to get to safety.
So close.
There's a micro ledge there. He could have landed. Yeah, you can see the power of the 3 pull crystals right there. You just fly across the screen.
Some little detail that's kind of fun is when you hear the radio go off, the sound is actually from like BBC broadcasts from World War II. And a lot of the sound design was really fun to make. We went back and found some historical kind of contexts and brought them up.
All right, so we are trucking right along. We have coming up. We have three worlds left in the speed run. So we're going to be doing a little bit more story, and then we got some more puzzles. So we are moving into Neon Alley. This is probably, it's one of my favorite books. It's really, really good. In this, we're going to get access to what is essentially a double jump. I'm not sure what is this crystal called? The
jump cell.
So yeah, we got jump cells here, and anytime that you connect with a jump cell, you get another jump. So you can store, I believe, up to 5 jumps from the jump cells, and use them to be creative in the ways that you finish some of these levels.
I think it's actually as many as you can get, but I think 5 might be the max that you can get at any given level, given how many jump cells we put in a level.
Oh, 5, I think 5 is the achievement.
Yeah.
So now we also have the EMP grids. So these little hexagonal, translucent things. You cannot actually use your soul flame while you're within one, so it leads to some very interesting routing and some very precise shots that you're trying to make to connect these crystals with the source without being in the EMP.
So one of the things that we did while designing Evergate was try to make the crystals follow the emotional story of Key. So in this, the jump cell, the free jumping, high lifting crystal kind of matches some of the storyline that's going on, and that's the same for all of the crystals. So as you kind of see the story unfold, hopefully you're reminded of those emotions when you see crystals from an earlier time.
So here we also have these drones that are trying to rudely shoot at you. You can break them and destroy them, but that is a little bit slow and completely unneeded in the speed run because we're just going to outrun them. That first drone right there is actually really, really difficult to get past without a speed up, so I'm pretty impressed with how that worked. But this is pretty much the intended strat for this level. You get the 3 jump cells and you just go right up through the middle. Oh, so he's going to break one here. So this is, I think this was one of the more confusing levels for me. There's a lot going on and a lot of different options to get you to the end of the level, and you have these drones shooting at you the entire time. You can actually disable the EMP field by having the drone shoot it, like Link Force is doing right here, and then you just kind of jump your way to the ending.
Nicely done.
There are some really, really crazy strategies that come out of that level that you can do. You can do it really, really fast. So we are moving on to the boss fight of Evergate. We got the crow here. This is one of the sections that is completely different in the Unlockables category because you get to cheese it, but Link Force has to do it the intended way, which is you gain a bunch of height using the various crystals that are available for that cycle, and then you use the arrow crystal to hit the crow. If you take too long, you have to restart the little section.
Now, the third puzzle here that's about to drop is one of the oldest puzzles in its exact same form. I think we had this in like October of 2018 or something, and it just made it because it's so much fun.
Yeah, it flows really well, and like I really like it because when you look at it, you have to be like, okay, how do I position these source crystals so I can bounce off of them a little bit later? Yeah, that's the crow. Then we get to move into the Underlands, which is there's a lot of turmoil going on within Key right now. So now we have been introduced to all of the various types of crystals, and the Underlands is going to throw us for another loop. So we're going to get these kind of wild card crystals. So you're going to see them just like as a black mass at first, but then you can select what you want them to turn into by hitting one of these sources that has the associated crystal type with it. So you see Link is hitting the pole crystal right here. It's going to turn all of the crystals on the map into pole crystals, and he's going to use those to finish the level. There's a little bit of an unintended skip here with a flower that you can find to kind of go onto this level and then use the off-screen pull crystal to help you finish this one.
Yeah, these puzzles can just kind of explode in complexity, so we had to be careful about how these were designed.
Yeah, I think that this one in particular was there's some creative solutions. So along the top, this is I think the longest map in the game, like that's not a bonus level, but it is very, very large horizontally, and as you see across the top, there's basically every crystal type that you can select from, and the swap crystal is all the way on the far left-hand side. So by doing a very precise shot, you turn on the swap crystals and swap yourself to the end of the level.
Sneaky. We actually had a lot of crystals that we ended up scrapping just because we wanted to select the top, 8 or 10 crystals that we wanted for the game to have. One of them was a reflection crystal where you could freeze some source and then bounce your soul flame off of it. Anyway, that got really complex, so we just stuck with our favorite. Nicely done.
That shot to the pull crystal block is really, really precise. It's very difficult on keyboard.
This is one of my favorite levels just because of the music.
You gonna go for the swag? Oh, no, he didn't. So you can make that drop without using your stored jump, and it's faster, but it's really unsafe.
That level looks so easy when you speedrun it.
Yeah, I think he is on PB pace. He's hauling right now.
Well done. So we're going to get a little bit of a story here. We're going to see he and her brother finally confront. I won't say too much more because I want to ruin it.
So yeah, this is the Storm book. These levels are just a little bit different than what you're used to. The first 3 levels are probably the hardest puzzle levels of the game, and the last 2 are just completely unique and off the wall. I really, really love this section.
You know, we were trying to figure out how to close out the game. You know, and we talked about big boss battles and things that were closer to the crow. But once we found how the game should end, I think we were pretty happy with it.
Yeah, so here we're getting some complex puzzle levels that use basically every element that the game has introduced up to this point. So we have the radio in this level, we have ice, we have the void crystals, we have all kinds of things going on. So what Link is doing here is a little bit of a skip. You're able to use a arrow crystal from the left side of the level to break the right side of the level, and it pretty much skips about half of it.
Yeah, so while we're mixing up the game elements, we're also mixing up the lives. You can see elements from Alaska, from China, from England, and from New York City in the future. So this was kind of like a reprise that was both musically and visually and gameplay-wise kind of a combination. It was really fun to make.
Yeah, and we actually get to see one of the puzzle elements here. So you might have saw it in earlier levels where you have this little wind drift. You can put crystals in it and they float off of that. Turns out you don't need to do it in any level but this one. But yeah, it's really cool. This level has a really interesting skip. So Link is turning on this dragon on the left-hand side, and then by shooting the swap crystal and immediately jumping, you're able to get right through the hole that the dragon left for you.
That whole puzzle was skipped. Crazy.
Yeah, that's one I don't even know how to finish casually anymore.
So those memories that we just saw, those like amalgamation of all the different memories, they got spread out into the afterlife. And so this next ending here will kind of, you get to rediscover those memories again in a unique way.
So now we have the power fully unlocked. So anytime Link is hitting Source with his Soul Flame, he's getting a boost crystal at this point. And this crystal type is going to change up a couple times, but it gives you have a lot of power in your movement right here. It's pretty crazy, some of the stuff that you can do. So here we're moving on to a void crystal, and this is the part that my computer hates, because you can just bring your computer to its knees right here. Let's see if Link does it. But yeah, by just spamming the voids, you can just swim your way all the way to the end of this level. He's doing a little bit of a more controlled variant. So yeah, we got one more section left with, well, I guess 2 more sections. We got our jump crystal right here. This one's really fun because now you get to play with infinite jump. Just get to double jump to your heart's content and finish this section. This one actually had a really interesting skip that I think got patched out, where you could swim past one of these fires and get to the top of the level. And finally, we have the infinite fierce flame. So you just fly your flame through the rubble here. Some of these, I really like the design here because there is the slower, safer way. But as speedrunners, we got to go the fast way. So we go through the tight spike zones there.
These last parts have my favorite music, where Mike kind of brought in all the elements from those different worlds into kind of a consistent theme that went all the way across the ending.
And it definitely comes to a head right here. I think this might actually be PB pace for him too. So we don't stop time until you actually lose control and the credits roll. So we got a couple more sections here. The game is essentially done, but We gotta wait. Gotta get all the story in here at the end.
Link Force, you crushed it. So this ending, I guess I'll wait until it happens. But this is where the story kind of culminates. I mean, obviously, it's the end. But the story was based a lot on my relationship with my younger brother. So I was drawing a lot on that during their conflict and resolution.
Yeah, here we see some of the visual storytelling elements that were present earlier that we rudely skipped as speedrunning. Yeah, I did just confirm this will be a PB for Link Force by a healthy chunk as well. He did very, very good for this.
This moment where you're in a fierce fight is actually real gameplay. You can move it around. And I'm always nervous that someone can find out a way to like hit the wall and kill the cutscene. I've talked about Ariel and Mike. I haven't mentioned Cynthia at all. She's our artist. She's the only one who drew anything except for we had one person help us, Chris Ortiz, with the memory art. But anything that you see here, she drew by hand. She's very impressive.
I think that's also a good point for me to just plug this game as a speedrunning game. If you are interested in some tight platforming, some puzzle elements, and an amazing community, please join the Evergate speedrunning Discord. If you go to speedrun.com, you can get linked to it right there. And that's time for that room.
Nicely done. Congrats.
I wonder if we can get him in here to talk about the run. All right, cool. Link Force is going to be joining us to talk a little bit about the run. So we got a little bit of time here we can kill. So yeah, Link, that's a PB. That's awesome.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the run?
I feel extremely happy. If it wasn't for that slow load time at the very beginning, I would have sub 42.
What was your personal best before this?
Somewhere like a mid 42-30. Well, on stream it was 44-58. Off stream it was like 42-40 something. So this is an overall best PB, and I'm happy.
You should be. I think you did an absolutely fantastic job. You showed off the game really well.
Yeah, thanks for doing this, Link Force.
Yeah.
This was fantastic.
I hope everything was stable enough to watch, because I was watching my own stream and it seemed fine.
Yeah, it looks like we had a little bit of a network issue, but I think we got the idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any other last minute thoughts about the run?
Just like to thank Kent and his team for making a very great game that's enjoyable, great storyline, great music, and overall a really great speedrunning game, in my opinion.
Thanks, Link Force. It was fun to watch you play.
And thank you guys for volunteering to commentate this run. It's kind of I want to do this, so I'm very glad you were able to help.
Yeah, no problem. Always happy to help the community out. Again, if you're interested in a new speed game, Evergate is fantastic. It's available on all of the new generation consoles as well as PC, and it is amazing. Highly recommended. And the community is awesome. Everybody's very helpful. So if you're interested, the runs are short. You don't have to commit a ton of time. But yeah, that's my.
Unless you're
my
doing low
fun bit.
percent.
We don't talk about low percent.
Just a heads up that it's on everything except for PlayStation. That'll happen early this year.
Awesome, thank you. Ken, do you have anything else you want to add before we take off?
No, thanks guys for watching Evergate. Really appreciate it. We poured a lot of time and effort into it. It took us about 3.5 years to finish, and just really fun to see people enjoy it. And speedrunners have been a really special part of both its development and its release. So just want to say thank you to all you guys who speedrun Evergate. Thanks.
Thank you.